him, but the grand challenge is being blocked. Albus will drop, and SKT have the healing advantage. AHQ have already lost 2. As Marin may burn, he survives, stays alive. Faker and Bang go forward. SK Telecom destroy AHQ and are one step closer to the Summoners Cup. And welcome back to London, everybody. Some shots of the Big Ben. One of the most beautiful clocks I've ever seen. Not really seen
I have a lot of
clocks.
zillion skins.
Are you big into clocks?
I really am. I really am.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite pastimes. Welcome back to the SSE Arena here in Wembley, where myself, Krepo and Phreak are going to have a nice casual chat about the day's proceedings. SKT 3-0 against AHQ.
Yeah.
It was the expected result. I think before we talk about maybe some of the more obvious and the broad things, let's go straight to game 3, the interesting one. The draft, no wave clear, all assassins all day, and it just kind of stagnated and stalled out.
It felt like Samsung White versus TSM game 3, where they picked almost the exact same champions, did the cast into the mid lane, bunch of assassins, no wave clear. Yeah, it felt a little bit like SKT styling. And the funny thing is, someone actually asked me about this, like, what's the chance of the upset? And I was like, there are some players that will start styling people and some people that'll play completely normal. Like Bang and Wolf will play normal regardless of the stakes of the game and regardless of how good or bad their opponents are. You look back at like BKT, right? Faker's playing Olaf, he's diving way more than he's supposed to. Like he's the guy who's gonna go a little bit crazy and the rest of the team's gonna play roughly normal.
It's just also a little bit ironic how these like massive skirmish bloodbath type of composition kind of actually make the game lower tempo based. So you expect to decide a crazy game, but then nothing happened because no kills tie into objectives, and that's why we saw an incredibly slow game where tier 2s fell a lot later than expected. Dragons eventually started racking up, and AHQ got the 4th dragon pressure, and I still don't even know what happened. They just suddenly back
AHQ got more dragons that game than SKT have given up this entire world championship.
Yeah, 4 times as many.
But then they forget that aspect is a thing, and they like just go Baron. They're like, yes, let Marin engage in us. I mean, is that crumbling under the pressure? I mean, like, what is it?
This is the thing. This is the skill level of the players, right? Like, as far as laning is concerned, these guys are all about as good as each other in solo queue, so you can have these lanes go back and forth, right? Multiple kills from Westor on a Faker, because, well, he's good at Fizz. Like, surprise, Westor does this a lot of the time. And, again, he is a good player. But, you know, then you get into a really hectic game where it's very solo QS and they're fighting back and forth. The game remains close because that skill level is close for all these players. You get into the really tense stuff where you're trading objectives back and forth, then SKT's proper gameplay shows, and lo and behold, the big misstep from HQ.
Yeah, and a lot of top lane mains obviously had their eyes on that matchup. Darius into Fiora. Really, really fun to see that evolve past every single item point. You know, initially Fiora wins, but then Ziv was getting back, just like all in styling on him. And suddenly the lifesteal starts kicking in, but then he has Sterak's Gauge. Suddenly he has to be careful again.
Just the mechanical differences as well. So not only the champions, the levels, the items. There was a couple times Ziv outplayed Marin, a couple times Marin outplayed Ziv. Like, it's very rare that you see the same matchup 2-3 times in a series and watch it evolve and escalate. Like AHQ, I think they looked better than maybe people gave them credit. They had some good rotational play. Sure. They held their own in lanes. Bang got punished for a few face checks that maybe he shouldn't have done, but like, credit to Albus. I mean, AHQ came away looking pretty good.
In game 3, yeah, they looked all right, but then we have to just critique Westor for the lack of proactivity, just running a double global once and not getting anything out of his first 2 Destinies, running TP the first 2 games, not getting any proactive plays. I mean, you saw Faker do it game 3. He gets teleport, bam, goes bot lane when Westor's running Ignite. Suddenly, Faker gets a kill for his team. He does pay the price there in the mid lane, but that is something I would expect more from a team whose mid lane was renowned for not really laning, but roaming a little bit. Just playing the side lanes a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, TF was like such a big ban for, against HQ the whole time around. But we talk about, you gave some credit over, right, to like, hey, HQ playing a bit better than expected. I mean, top 8 at Worlds, right? They got out of a group with Fnatic and Invictus Gaming in it, right? They crushed their last week right there, beat Cloud9 a couple of times. Like, they're clearly good. This is how they got here in the first place. But SKT is ridiculous. Yeah. So, I mean, almost every team's going to look bad by comparison.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about in the game. SKT is so usual to having a lead against people, so you start calling 800 gold leads from SKT a loss almost. Like, they're not 3K ahead this game, boys. And it's so hard to play against that because you always find yourself behind or even at best.
The thing is, it's true, but like the biggest deficit, the smallest lead that SK had accrued out of the games they've played was 700 gold. That's their smallest lead. Like, they don't have negatives. So, I mean, as somebody who's been on stage and has played, looking at SKT in that game 3, is there anything that other teams can take away? You know, we know they've moved forward, but now other teams, everybody's watching them. We heard Marin even talking about like the pressure of being the most watched team and there's pressure to play and whatnot. But
I think they finally showed mistakes and weaknesses more so than they have in group stages. But even then, they still showed the react way to play the game. Games 1 and 2, there was almost no way to find counterplays to SKT. Everything they were doing was slightly obvious from a spectator point of view, but it was executed so well with no room for counterplay. This game, however, SKT was making mistakes. They were getting picked off because they took the competition as far away from a team game as they could. All individual lanes where you have a lot more variance in terms of outplay potential. You don't really cover your losses with team play and rotations. And even there, they still shine because we had some fantastic mechanical outplays overall.
Absolutely.
I have to ask you guys about Tahm Kench. Mechanical outplays, decision making. This is a champion who has now been unbenched. Week 2 and week 3, we're seeing Tahm getting more and more proactive. Like, Phreak, what is making this guy just so good and so popular amongst the pros?
I think Tahm Kench works almost in all situations, especially with like sort of the way the game is being played right now, especially like this matchup with a lot of assassins coming in, like LeBlanc's getting big again as well. So all these single target focused matchups, he breaks that apart. You can't focus him very well because he has basically the 50% damage reduction by pressing E at the right time. And, you know, he also takes that target back. Like, to me, he feels like the new Thresh in terms of like, he can go in, he can go out, he can protect people.
Krepo said that right at the end of the day, saying how like,
you don't need the ulti.
You didn't even need the ulti to be
the same way
relevant.
Thresh initially in his kit, let's face it, it's slightly overloaded. You didn't even need the box to be an efficient Thresh player. The same way you don't need Abyssal Voyage for Tahm Kench players, which is why it's one of the most underdeveloped abilities right now, because it doesn't require good Abyssal Voyage to be a good Tahm Kench. But what we'll see, though, as these teams get used to playing against it both on the stage and in scrims, that people will start adapting to the plays, and those mistakes that people make earlier, like hooking and then finding, oh, Devour, or going in, oh, Devour, flashing forward, and oh no, Devour, that won't happen anymore. So we will see a slight dip in performance, hopefully later on in the tournament on Tahm Kench, and then the really two great Tahm Kench players will come out and make the champion shine again with creative pathing with Abyssal Voyage.
I think team comp-wise, like, more sort of AoE teamfight-based teams, because like he absorbs one person, but if you've got slicing Maelstrom coming through with the Chaos Storm and everything else, like, that effectiveness goes down. So I think that, like, compositionally, if Tahm Kench is too good at, making single target damage suck, teamfight comps come back out. But surprise, AHQ plays only assassins. They're not going to do well against it.
So, important question. We've seen the Korean squads performing well with them. SKT and Q, I think, have shown off the things you can do with the Tahm Kench.
Well, unsurprisingly, these are two teams who are facing off against the LMS assassin mid laners, right?
Yeah,
Those are the guys
that makes
where
sense.
the Tahm Kench looks really good because that's all Maple and all West are playing.
But now the next question, does this elevate Tahm Kench's value closer to Gangplank and Mordekaiser tier? Because like
I don't think
Lulu,
so.
like Lulu week 1 was almost perma-banned. Week 2 slid through, now week 3's kind of fallen by the wayside to pick and choose. How big of the gap, if Mord and GP are this S tier, where does Tahm fit in with Lulu, for example?
The only thing speaking in favor of potentially even Gangplank, Mordekaiser open, in my opinion, is the fact that just teams may just not have practiced him enough. If he's this perma-banned, teams just may not be accustomed to playing him and might actually get surprised by suddenly getting Mordekaiser open. Also, in terms of drafts, you plan out a certain way. Right now, a lot of these coaches are operating under the assumption that both Gangplank and Mordekaiser are out on the first 2 rotation bans on purple side. Once you throw that out of the water, then teams will need to start adapting. But
I can't wait to see a team let them go. I can't wait to see a team like brave.
Well, that's always been bad so far. If I understand properly, those champions are all undefeated. So far those tests have failed.
True, but that's also been the better team against the weaker team in group stage.
I mean, even TSM won Mordekaiser, so
we're into the exciting part of the bracket stage. Because, of course, tomorrow Fnatic take on EDG, so Euphoria or Eulogy, I think these are the hashtags we're going to have to start measuring. Krepo, we've looked at the bracket, we've got a semi-final locked in, but we've got another quarterfinal tomorrow.
I mean, for me, Fnatic goes straight to the finals in my pick'em, so I do think they have the edge against Edward Gaming, and they will be a close match in the semifinals, whoever comes out of KTQ. I'm just excited because it'll just show us how well EDG have bounced back from some of the lackluster performances. Kirillov, for me, needs to work a lot on his pathing and his gang priority. It does change, the entirety of the spectrum changes with that roster swap.
Yeah, and the one thing this bracket is also great for is it really puts the 4 sort of stronger teams in that top 8 in one side of the bracket, in theory, to then at least have the final guy remain against what we assume will be SKT in the final, right? So I quite like how the bracket played out. Flash Wolves, AHQ, Origin, arguably
that's
the weaker of the 8.
Right? Is we're talking like SKT got the easy bracket, right? Origin, Flash Wolves, AHQ, but keep in mind, Flash Wolves 2-0'd Q Tigers, and KT are actually a bit afraid of Q Tigers. Like, as much as we understand like our perceived power of these teams, the seeding tells you differently. So, again, on paper, still looks the same way. I tend to agree with you, but I always want to keep the results in mind where that's not exactly true here. They do become very interesting matchups. Fnatic specifically, ever since week 2 have looked absolutely great. And keep in mind that, you know, if we do see Fnatic go into the finals here up against SKT, well, they fought at MSI, it went to 5 games, and now Fnatic has a much better AD carry here. So,
thing is, Fnatic have to get through the MSI victors to even run a
EDG
shot.
looks so much weaker right now, and it's very strange to see.
But Fnatic looked weak in week 1.
They looked weaker in week 1, but then because they were overconfident, EDG just didn't look that great the whole time. Like they were good. I mean, they got second in their group. They beat AHQ. They're still a good team. They deserve top 8 at Worlds EDG here, but I don't think they deserve much more than that.
How nervous are we that Fnatic's going to tilt in this quarterfinal, Krepo?
I think some of their members, like Huni, for example, has shown a slight tendency towards, would you call it tilting or just trying to chase a loss?
Let's say underperforming.
Just chase a loss. When he died, he had a couple of teleports where he immediately tried to counter kill instead of taking the slow approach back. But we've seen Raynor actually adapted that in his gameplay, and they're not allowing Huni to ever fall behind. Complete dominance in the top side of the map by pretty much the Huni Raynor Febiven triangle.
Yeah.
And then Yellowstar and Reckless have been okay. The only thing I would fault Fnatic for so far in the tournament is not respecting potential roams onto Reckless. He died a couple of times where they had full-on deep vision. But looking at the way EDG is going to play, Fnatic should be ready because they're coming in with Koro instead of an Amazing J, and then that's going to be a very defined playstyle where Krylov goes back to camp bot lane, and that usually doesn't work against Fnatic.
Yeah, but the thing is, if EDG go back to a playstyle that is a little bit more comfortable, where Pawn and Def get more of the resources, in theory, does that not enable them? Because like Amazing J had some, let's say, tough games in the group stage.
Oh yeah, he had not a great
tried the carries, it didn't show up.
Sure. So I think, you know, switching back to Koro is the right choice. Now the thing that's difficult here for EDG is the fact that they put all the practice in with Amazing J. They thought he was going to be the guy to play for the World Championship, and
didn't really show it.
Not working out. So the question is, right, a relatively practiceless Koro, who is probably a better player, but again, practiceless, it's a question mark, right? You don't actually know if it's going to be better or worse than Amazing J, honestly.
But from looking at the games that EDG played against SKT, you can put any player in the position that Amazing J was in, and he would still die to a couple of those ganks that they cut off. Krylov just, or EDG as a team,
TPs were bad.
Need to, that is true. That is the one difference. Koro is a fantastic teleport player, and he has really good map awareness, so he plays less risky, and he plays better without a lead than Amazing J, but Amazing J was put slightly in the dumpster by just EDG being like, okay, you're in top lane, you're on an island, we're just going to play this side of the map, oh, you're dead.
We've heard all the Aussies keep talking about Koro as a great low economy player. So I'm going to put you boys on the spot, but with a thought, right?
Okay.
Both of the Chinese teams that got kicked out in group stages performed better once they substituted a player in. EDG have substituted Koro in the quarterfinals, a best of against Fnatic.
I think they improved.
Is it going to be enough? So, Phreak, who is winning tomorrow?
Fnatic. For the sake of my pick bracket, Fnatic. I do
your
think...
pick and bracket, that's your justification.
Well, but also for the fact that I believe it, and I said 2 months ago we're going to see 2 Western teams top 4. At the time, I thought it was going to be CLG as one of them. Now I'm just like, yes, Euphoria, yes, European players, you're so good at League of Legends.
Last year was NA at Worlds, this year it's our turn. Look, we're all brethren when it comes to that. Krepo?
Yeah, I think Fnatic will take the series 3-1, actually. I think EDG, unless they show remarkable improvement in the way they play the games, Fnatic should be able to win the game. But tilt is a risk, because they have shown tendencies where they fall back to mistakes that they haven't made in a very long time. All the way back to the end of Spring Split, all the way to maybe the first few games in summer. And seeing Fnatic take such a big step backwards, makes me worried in a sense. It's
going to be tough. And, you know, arguably this is one of the first times Fnatic may have been pushed in picks and bans, maybe not stressed as much in EU LCS. We'll figure out if they've found a balance. That does it for us here at Worlds tonight. We will be back tomorrow. Fnatic will take on EDG at 2 p.m. local time. It's 3 hours earlier than today. That is 6 a.m. if you're on the West Coast or Pacific time.
That's early.
Fnatic versus EDG. Get up, get your cup of coffee, and come tune in. We'll see you then.
World Championship quarterfinal.
Bang's looking for on the play, will not find a target. Morin, he'll get a heal from the summoner spell and stay alive. Cocoon buys time for SKT to take down the second tower, and SK Telecom will hold true, and SK Telecom finish the game to go 1-0. Bang gets caught by a Cocoon, and the blade holds Morin in place. Art is going low. Morin will not be able to get the kill. Will find Bang. Devour's available, and Wolf eats him, saving Bang.
No damage.
Spits him
Told
back
you.
out, and there's no damage. SKT are 1 game away from a battle against Origin.
Wow. Is going to get killed. Westall follows the flash. May not survive. One more hit. Volatile Spiderling comes up. Grand challenge is available. Ziv gets the heal from Decimate, but it's not enough. Ziv is being exhausted as he's on the back line. Artist trying to hop and skip towards Marin. A double kill for Bang.